Let's dive into the powerful set of tools in Excel that can make your data analysis much more efficient. I'm talking about the database functions. Now, what are database functions? Imagine you have large table of data, as we can see here on this sheet, database functions. We got salesperson selling different products in different regions to different customers on different dates. We have different item cost, number of items in their total cost. And this is a huge data, about 900 rows of data. And we want to make sense of this. So we have a large data, perhaps a sales data, or maybe you may have a customer database or inventory log. It could be anything. You often need to pull out specific information from this table based on certain criteria, right? That's where the database functions come in. Unlike the regular sum or average, which operate on all the data that you select, database functions allow you to perform calculations on a subset of a data. They are designed to work with data that organized in a structured format like a database. Now you might say, okay, we need to create this as a table. No, you don't need to create this as a table. And allow me to zoom in a bit. Here we go. And we can see this. This should be good enough. And I will make it like this. That's better. And I think that should be good. Now, why do you want to use the database functions? Well, you might be thinking, well, I can already use filters, SUMIF, COUNTIF, and you're actually right. But database functions offer some distinct advantages. They separate the data from the criteria, making your formulas easier to read and modify. They handle complex criteria involving multiple conditions and or logic very effectively. And all the database functions follow the same structure, making them easier to use, easier to understand. Now, there are some key functions in database functions, which is called DSUM, which will give you the sum of the values that meet your criteria. The average, we got an average function, a companion function, which calculates the average. DCOUNT will count the number of numbers in the field, a number of cells that contain numbers. Count A on blank cells in the field means whatever cell that contain data. Now there are two other companion functions, DMAX. It will return the maximum largest value, the minimum, and you might have already guessed what it's going to do. And then we have DPRODUCT and DGET. And we will be covering all of them here. Now, all the database functions have the same syntax, same parameters, all of them. Equal DSUM, if I type in DSUM, database, field, and criteria. So I'm going to type it here, database, field, and criteria. These are parameters that every D function has. Database, this is a range of the cells that hold your data table. It must include the header row, which contains the column names. Think of it as your entire table you're working with. Now, database function doesn't work if you create a table. It has to be organized like a list. Then you have a field. This specifies which column you want to use in your calculation. Now, there are two ways to define it. You can use column label, like you can use in double quotes. You can type it in, for example, number of items or customer or region or product. This is a recommended approach as it is more readable. Or you can also use the column index, specify the column number that you want to use. For example, 1, 2, 3, third column, fourth column, and you can use that as well. Then you have a criteria. Now this is a separate range of cells where you define the conditions that met which data is included in your calculations. It is crucial to set this up correctly. So in your criteria range, you need to have the headers and the criteria that you want. And these headers need to match with the headers in your data. The header row must contain the same columns as your headers in the database table. Spelling, spacing, they should match exactly. Each row below the header row specify the set of conditions. Now rows are combined. You can combine them or with an or logic. That is, a record will be included if that matches the criteria in any of the rows. Or you can use and as well. Now you can combine these functions with or and and. We have already covered that with the if function, so we might not be doing it over here. So let's take a look at that. We want to calculate the sum of Northeast region. So I only want to calculate what is the total of Northeast region. So I can use a sum function here, DSUM. Database, as we already know, and we select the database. Here we go. Now, what is the field? I can use the field I want the total of number of items. So I can use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can put in number 7 because I need the sum from 7th column. And what is the criteria? My region has to be Northeast. And I press enter, boom, we get an answer. Northeast region, how many number of items? Now, instead of it easy to read, instead of number 7, you can also use number of items here. You can click on G1, press enter, you'll still get the same answer. Or you can hand type it, number items, and press enter, you get an answer. Same answer. And we see that happening over here. So we companion function for this is an average function, DAVERAGE. We can use it average equal DAVERAGE. Where is the database? Of course, let's copy the database A1 to H910. So I'm going to use DAVERAGE. Where's the database? This is the database. What is the field I want? Maybe, of course, number of items. Or maybe I want average of total cost. So I can select H1 or I can put in number 8, comma. Where is the criteria? Northeast. Here it is. This is an average. Now this is average of Northeast total only, Northeast. Now you may want to have multiple criterias. And in database function, you can have multiple criterias. Maybe you want to find an average of Northeast whose product is food and coffee table. So what we can do, we can simply expand the parameters, press enter, here it is. In here also we can expand the parameters, 619. Now how many products, wood and coffee table in Northeast are sold to customer Metro Emporium? Maybe you have this right. You can expand it like this as well, 99 of those. And you can use filter to match the data. And maybe we want to count it. So of course we can have a companion function, DCOUNT. Here is the database. Here's a field of number of items, comma, and here's the criteria. I press enter, you'll get 11 of those. Now 11 items are there. 11 items are there, which has region Northeast, wooden coffee table, and Metro Emporium. And this is the sum of those items. The sum will do the sum. Count will do the count of those. And then we have a DCOUNT A, which will count the cells that are not empty. It will again count all these cells. If I use the same formula here, I'll get additional one column in the DCOUNT A. I'll simply put A here. Let's see. Here so 11 cells are there which has the data out there. And of course, we can also find the maximum and the minimum. So I can use the same one here as well. So I can use DMAX. The minimum is 15, and a companion function is minimum. So you can use DMIN, and we got a minimum number is 1. Now you might say might have seen this function earlier, something similar to me. It is looking like maybe we have used this count function or sum function. And so yes, you are right. So you can use sum function as well, SUMIF or SUMIFS, and DSUMs, of course, you can use. So you can use either one of it. So DSUMs and SUMIFS function. So we have seen various functions in the database functions. DSUM, DAVERAGE, all of these functions work on the same structure. Now, DSUM, there are certain differences between the DSUM and SUMIF function. Like for example, the structure of the data, it has to be in table format in DSUM functions. In SUMIF, you're more flexible. Criteria can use separate criteria range, but in SUMIF, you have to use within the function. And of course, you can have multiple conditions, and DSUM is less flexible as compared to SUMIF function. So you can use them at multiple conditions occasionally as an alternative to SUMIFs as well. Over here on the right side, we have another function here called DPRODUCT. Now, we don't have a matching product function in Excel, which will give us the product of all these functions. Like for example, DPRODUCT we want to use. Let's say I'll type it here, DPRODUCT. Okay, we'll do it on the next chapter here. So let's take a look at this DGET function here first. Now, DGET function is like a XLOOKUP function or VLOOKUP function where you get the information, the matching information of that cell. But this is not an alternative to VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP function. Please be very careful with that. So for example, over here, we would like to get the information who sold this table. We don't know, but somebody sold this table and we want to know the name of the sales guy who sold this wooden coffee table, and I'll put it here rather. So just to make sure we see that right next to the data. And over here, I'll move it here. So we want to know who is the sales guy who sold this. So we want to use DGET. Now, if the parameter says, if the function says extract from the database single record that matches conditions you specify, it's like a match function. So DGET, where is the database? Of course, this is my database, A12H910. I want to find information of what? Which field? I want to find the sales guy. And what is the criteria? Criteria is who sold in Southwest Wooden Coffee Tale Metro Emporium on 24th November he sold. Somebody sold it. Who sold it? I don't know. And we know Ajit Roy sold it. And over here we see that Ajit Roy Wooden Coffee Table Metro Emporium 24th November. We can see what's happening. So we can get these information. But can I use this as an alternative to VLOOKUP function? No, you cannot. Can I get multiple answers? No. It is used only to get a single answer. That's the disadvantage. And it is not considered to be as at any point of time as an alternative to the VLOOKUP function or XLOOKUP function. Those are lookup functions. This is to get only single information, single cell information. It works in single cell. You can't copy and drag it. You can select these multiple fields. You only have one field here to to get the information from. So we got some disadvantages, we got some limitations out there when we use the database functions. But good to know. You can try using it. It's more simpler, more easier to use. Here we have a DPRODUCT function. Now, for example, let's say in this example, we got multiple regions who are selling different products and different quantity, and we got different price. Now, DPRODUCT is a little bit different than what you might have guessed already, that it will multiply quantity into price and then it will give us the answer. No, it doesn't work like that. So DPRODUCT function is like a product function. Now, like we have a sum function, it will add all the items. So DPRODUCT will multiply, of course, product means multiply. So DPRODUCT will multiply all the items in that criteria. And let's see that in action. So if I have a DPRODUCT, I want to use how many laptops in North regions were sold. So we want to multiply them, not add them. We want to multiply them. For some reasons, we want to do that. So we use DPRODUCT equal DPRODUCT. Where's the database? Of course, this is my database, comma. What we want the product of? Of course, we want the product of quantity. The more the number, the bigger the number, the more the higher the result you will get. So, and criteria is product laptop. First, we'll use this one and press enter. 5,184. Now, what is it doing? It is actually looking for all the laptops, and I'll filter it to explain you, understand, help you understand how does this work. So it will use all the laptop, and then it will not do the sum. It will do the multiplication of all these. 2 multiplied by 1 into 2 into 3 into 1 into 2 into 3 into 2 into 3 into 1 into 2 into, and that's how we get 5,184. And you can also expand the criteria to north, and here we get 3. Now let's take a look at this. So we want to have this laptop in the north. So the sum would be 5, but the product is 3 because 3 into 1 into 1, so 3. So it is giving the product of all this information. Now, I don't have a better case to explain to you why would you need this information, but depending upon what you need to take a judgment call on this one. Why would you need to use a DPRODUCT? It's a very powerful function. So it is actually used to calculate the product values in the specific column of a data set to meet the criteria you specify. Now, why do you want to use it? Maybe while you could potentially achieve a similar result by product or if. DPRODUCT offer more structured way to perform this calculation. You can also use product function here as well. If you know how to use product, you can use it. Product equal product. There you go. And you can select the numbers you want a product of. And 2 into, and I might have 2 into 5 into 3. So I might get an answer 30. 5 say 15 to a 30. So you can get the product here. So you can select multiple criteria, multiple information. But this offers a more filtered way. You have the condition, the if function inbuilt into this one. So it is a much more consistent function than the regular product function. So I hope you got the sense here. So where you want to use it, of course, you will decide based on your conditions, your judgments, how you want to use it. I have explained this to you, how you can use these functions.